Hi all. Welcome to our next week of e-learning. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe, healthy, and you're doing stuff that are keeping you occupied. I'd like to congratulate those of you guys who have been doing really good work. I mean, I'm really seeing grades jumping up. Some of you have very high A's. Some of you are bringing your D's up to C's. A few C's went up to B's, and that the goal is by the end of June to have A's and really beef up that GPA and your report card. So those of you who have been doing good work, keep it up. Keep doing work, get to that A, and those of you who have not, please jump on it. What I'm gonna do today, I'll go over a quick overview of this week. I don't have an agenda, but I will just talk it over. We're going to do today, we're going to do the limitations of the civil rights movement, and tomorrow there's going to be a continued exercise with that. Okay. On Thursday and Wednesday, we're going to jump into the war on drugs. So we're going to have an activity. And on Thursday, you're going to have choices again for a documentary regarding the war on drugs with a form that you will fill out. Today, I'm going to post this activity, and with that, I'm also going to post just a quick check-in to see how you're doing with the work, and I'm also going to ask if you would want us to have at least once a week a session where we do a live classroom. I tried to do one last week. No one showed up. If you want to do it, we can do it. If you guys don't think there's value and if it's okay to keep doing like we're doing, we could do it. We could keep doing what we've been doing. I'm not going to force a live session. I understand that it's hard to do it at specific times. I know other teachers might be doing it. So I will post that if a good amount of you want to do it, then we'll hold one. I'll ask what's the best time between 10 to 2, and whatever is the best time, we'll go for that. We'll start scheduling them, and if you guys don't see any value for those, then we won't do them. Okay. All right. The other thing I'm gonna say is I'm gonna post office hours sign in like I've been posting. The only thing I'm going to say is I'm just gonna start doing them Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. No one really has been taking advantage of them, so I'm gonna limit those to 3 days a week. But if you want to meet on Tuesday and Thursday, you just have to shoot me an email and we can schedule a time. I just won't have specific time set aside, but I will have office hours available on those days if you need it to. Okay. All right, so let's jump into the limitations of the civil rights movement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this timeline with you. Then you're going to have part two to do where you're going to have to answer some questions, all right? So here's the timeline. In August 1965, the Voting Rights Act is passed, formally ending legal discrimination, all right? So this is stuff like, African Americans having to go to different theaters in the South, having to use different water fountains. Okay. It also helps with voting. Voting rights were limited in the South, so now African Americans were not. It was illegal to keep African Americans away from voting, which you're going to see is actually a pretty what you see in the future is that African Americans actually vote at pretty high rates, and that it changes the way elections go. In August of 1967, Martin Luther King gives speech. Where do we go from here? To outline next steps for achieving equality post legal segregation. All right, so just because segregation is now illegal, it doesn't mean everything's gotten better. So he starts talking about where we go from here, and what you're going to see is Martin Luther King is going to get a lot more involved um, in radical economic movements. He starts talking about the Poor People's Campaign, and he starts viewing economic rights and poverty as something that keeps not only African Americans back, but he's also concerned about Hispanic Americans, white Americans, all right? I think I missed a day here because I was reading it inappropriately. So, October 1966, the Black Panther Party is founded to achieve social and economic inequality. I believe the Black Panther Party was formed out of leaders of the SCLC. Okay, so again, to achieve social and economic inequality, right? So they want economic equality as well. What you're going to see is there's going to be an increased occurrence of race riots slash protests in urban areas during this time period. So cities like Detroit, Los Angeles, New York, there's going to be race riots, okay? Because African Americans are upset with the way they're being treated, and they're also upset about the economic inequality, not having as much money, as much opportunity, black neighborhoods being in worse conditions than white neighborhoods. All right, so in the long hot summer in 159, race riots occurred in 1967 in cities across the nation. Now, in February 1968, in response to urban uprisings and riots, Kerner Commission recommends creating programs that provide support to disadvantaged communities, focus on housing, education, and employment in order to fight poverty. So, the Kerner Commission was a group of Democratic politicians led by Otto Kerner, who was the governor of actually Illinois. And what they did a commission, they studied how to improve the lives of African Americans and living conditions and economic opportunity. And this is what they decided. They want programs to help support housing, education, and employment. In February of 1968, sanitation workers strike in Memphis, Tennessee. Strikers focused on economic inequality and workers' rights. Okay, so again, this whole theme of economics is coming up with the workers' strike in Memphis, Tennessee. In April 1968, Martin Luther King gets assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a terrible day for African Americans, for the United States as a whole. There's, the one leader, the leader of the civil rights movement, was shot. A huge amount of riots occur on that day after African American communities find out that he was killed. And in November 1968, Richard Nixon is elected president. He led a law and order campaign in response to increased crime in urban areas. There was undertones of his campaign being a little bit racist. What he used in order to win in 1968 is he used crime and law and order to kind of stirred up fears in American middle class in the suburbs, and he ends up winning this election because of the help of the suburbs and the middle class, while kind of focusing on the fear of crime being on the uptick. Okay, we're gonna. Richard Nixon is the person who ends up starting the war on drugs, which we're gonna kind of find out in the future. All right. So now what I want you to do is you're going to answer a few of these questions, okay? So one of the questions is post-1965, how does the civil rights movement change its focus? What are its new goals? Please provide evidence from the timeline. We kind of talked about this, right? What was this main topic we talked about in new goals? How do they plan to do this? Please refer to the Kerner Commission documents. Read 3 of the 6 Kerner documents, okay? And I'm going to add these into. Actually, you know what? We're going to skip that part. What you're going to do is you're just going to answer questions 1 and 2. All right? This is going to be, you're going to answer this question here and this question here. All right? This part is not going to be posted, okay? So before the civil rights movement, most efforts to solve racial equality focus on ending individual racism. How does the Kerner Commission attempt to solve institutional racism? How is it different from previous attempts to solve social inequality? So think about the economic advantages that they wanted to fix, and how is this going to solve institutional racism? All right, so if you have any questions, you can hop into a session of for office hours, or you can watch this video or shoot me an email anytime. All right. Thank you.